Born the illegitimate son of a notary and a peasant woman in 1452, Leonardo spent his early childhood in the Tuscan village of Vinci. He was surrounded by vineyards and olive groves, sparking a curiosity for the natural world that would define his life. Ser Piero took custody of the boy, who grew up on the family estate. In the mid-1460s, young Leonardo moved with his family to Florence, the vibrant center of Renaissance art and humanist thought. Lacking formal schooling, he immersed himself in practical experience, mastering drawing, music, and basic mathematics through observation. A story recalls Leonardo painting a terrifying, fantastical dragon onto a peasant's round shield with such lifelike realism that it terrified his father. Though perhaps legendary, this tale demonstrates Leonardo's prodigious, imaginative skill even as a child artist. Around 1469, Leonardo began his pivotal apprenticeship under Andrea del Verrocchio, one of Florence's most celebrated artists and engineers. For 7 intensive years, he learned sophisticated techniques encompassing painting, sculpture, drafting, and metalworking in a busy, collaborative workshop. While working on Verrocchio's Baptism of Christ, c. 1475, the young apprentice painted an angel whose exquisite rendering of soft tones and lifelike hair astonished his master. The quality of Leonardo's figure allegedly led a humbled Verrocchio to renounce painting thereafter. By the age of 20, Leonardo had successfully completed his training and gained recognition. In 1472, he was officially listed as a member of Florence's prestigious Guild of St. Luke, signifying his ability to accept independent commissions as an artist. Leonardo's early solo work, The Annunciation, circa 1472 to 1475, demonstrated his emerging signature style. The detailed landscape, soft atmospheric blending, sfumato, and careful depiction of flowers already revealed his keen scientific observation of nature. On August 5, 1473, Leonardo penned a detailed atmospheric sketch of the Arno River Valley, complete with distant mountains and castles. This landscape drawing is considered the first standalone landscape in Western art, studied purely for its natural forms. In April 1476, Leonardo faced a personal crisis when he was anonymously accused of sodomy, a serious crime in Florence. Though the charges were dismissed, this scandal likely reinforced his need for privacy and contributed to his discreet personal life. By 1478, Leonardo secured independent commissions, including an altarpiece for Florence's Palazzo Vecchio. He also began St. Jerome in the Wilderness, depicting the gaunt saint in a powerful, unfinished rough sketch linking art with early anatomical study. In 1481, the artist received the prestigious commission for The Adoration of the Magi. His preparatory drawings show figures sketched nude first to perfect their anatomy, demonstrating his intellectual, scientific approach to artistic composition. The unfinished Adoration composition features a complex, swirling throng of figures, contrasting the central serenity of the Madonna with expressive chaos. It showcases Leonardo's early obsession with depicting the intense, individualized motions of the mind through gesture and expression. In 1482, seeking new horizons beyond competitive Florence, Leonardo wrote an extraordinary resume to Ludovico Sforza of Milan. He advertised his unparalleled skills first as a military engineer, capable of designing war machines and bridges, only mentioning painting at the letter's end. Leaving Florence, Leonardo traveled to Milan, where he spent 17 years as court artist and engineer for Duke Ludovico il Moro Sforza. He immediately immersed himself in diverse projects, from art to designing costumes for spectacular court festivals and pageants. During his early Milanese years, Leonardo filled his notebooks with sketches for advanced war machines. These included multi-barreled cannons, improved catapults, and the famous armored fighting vehicle, a turtle-shaped tank, though likely none were built. In 1483, Leonardo began work on the first version of Virgin of the Rocks for a Milanese confraternity. Set in a mysterious, craggy grotto, the painting uses innovative pyramidal composition and deep chiaroscuro to evoke a sense of enigmatic depth and spiritual atmosphere. Around 1485, Leonardo's focus turned to the possibility of human flight. He sketched one of the first known parachute designs, a pyramidal linen canopy, confidently stating that one could jump from any height without injury. His studies intensified with a treatise on the flight of birds, detailing bird wing mechanics and air currents. He famously drew the aerial screw, a helical rotor meant to be turned by men, anticipating the core principles of the helicopter centuries later. In 1487, Leonardo embarked on his most ambitious sculptural project, a massive bronze equestrian statue, Il Colosso, honoring Francesco Sforza. He produced complex engineering drawings to cast the 7.2-meter-tall statue, the largest ever conceived. By 1493, Leonardo completed the full-scale clay model of Il Colosso, unveiled to great admiration at a Sforza wedding. However, political turmoil intervened. The 66 tons of bronze designated for casting were diverted to forge cannons. Lorsque Français troupes overran Milan en 1499, ils tragiquement utilisèrent Leonardo's magnifique clay horse model pour target practice, détruisant-elle. Cette immense sculpture devenait l'un des Renaissances most célébrés et heartbreaking lost works. In 1490, Leonardo took in Gian Giacomo Caprati, a young boy he nicknamed Sale, Little Devil, due to his mischievous, thieving behavior. Despite his faults, Sale remained Leonardo's companion and model for the next 3 decades. Around this time, Leonardo developed his routine of compiling meticulous daily notebooks, sketching and writing observations on every subject. These notes, eventually totaling some 13,000 pages, formed his unique legacy as a universal genius. Leonardo habitually used his peculiar mirror writing, a neat right-to-left script, for his private journals. This left-handed method prevented ink smudging and served as a personal shorthand, appearing to later readers as a mysterious code. Between 1487 and 1490, Leonardo executed the canonical Vitruvian Man, a drawing illustrating ideal human body proportions perfectly inscribed within a circle and a square. The sketch synthesized art, science, and the classical belief that man is the measure of all things. In 1492, Leonardo decorated the Sala delle Asse in Sforza Castle with an intricate mural. Using trompe-l'oeil, he created an illusionistic canopy of interlacing oak branches and foliage, demonstrating his skill in symbolic and deceptive design. Leonardo also painted portraits, notably The Lady with an Ermine, c. 1489 to 1490, believed to depict Cecilia Gallerani, Ludovico Sforza's mistress. The subject's dynamic turn and the subtle play of light display his developing psychological depth in portraiture. By the mid-1490s, Leonardo fully matured his painting methods, utilizing sfumato, smoky blending, and chiaroscuro, light-shadow contrast, to model form, creating figures that contemporaries marveled at for appearing to breathe. Between 1495 and 1498, Leonardo reached an artistic pinnacle with The Last Supper, commissioned for the refectory wall of Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan. The mural captures Christ's betrayal announcement and the apostles' instantaneous, agitated reactions. He structured the disciples in 4 distinct groups of 3, each gesture conveying shock, anger, or distress, a compositional masterpiece of rhythm and psychological realism that broke traditional, static representations. Judas is subtly integrated among the others, but is recognizable by the shadow shrouding him and the overturned salt cellar, a symbol of treachery. This innovation enhanced the drama and realism of the biblical narrative. Tragically, Leonardo's experimental choice to paint the Last Supper in oil and tempera on a dry wall, instead of true fresco, led to immediate and irreversible deterioration. Within decades, the mural was already flaking and lamented as ruined. As the 1490s closed, Leonardo consulted on architectural plans for Milan Cathedral's central tower, though these drawings were never used. He continued his secretive scientific inquiry, dissecting animals to study anatomy and mechanics. He studied water flow in rivers, observing vortex patterns and principles of erosion. Notably, he correctly deduced that fossil shells found on mountains indicated those rocks were once undersea, challenging established biblical geology. In 1499, King Louis XII of France invaded Milan, forcing Duke Ludovico Sforza to flee. Finding his patronage gone, the 48-year-old Leonardo decided it was prudent to depart, becoming an itinerant scholar once more. Leonardo left Milan in December 1499 with Salai and his friend, the mathematician Luca Pacioli, taking only his notebooks and a few portable artworks. He abandoned the Last Supper to the mercy of the French occupiers. In early 1500, Leonardo traveled to Venice, offering his skills as a military engineer to the Republic, which faced Ottoman naval threats. He brainstormed radical ideas for harbor defense against maritime attack. He sketched detailed plans for a leather diving suit, complete with cane tubes and floats for breathing underwater, intending to allow men to sabotage enemy ships. This early scuba suit was centuries ahead of available technology. By April 1500, Leonardo returned to Florence and was welcomed as a celebrity. He was given quarters at the monastery of Santissima Annunziata, where he resumed artistic work after his long absence. He began a large charcoal and chalk cartoon for the Virgin and Child with Saint Anne. When displayed in 1501, the monumental sketch caused a public sensation, drawing flocks of people as if they were attending a great festival. Restless for new challenges, Leonardo abruptly entered the service of the ruthless Cesare Borgia in 1502. He was appointed Borgia's chief military engineer and architect during the campaign across the Romagna region. Traveling with Borgia's army, Leonardo inspected fortresses and created some of Europe's first truly accurate maps. His scaled overhead town plan of Imola impressed Borgia with its clear strategic value. During his time with Borgia, Leonardo met Niccolò Machiavelli. The two later collaborated on an ambitious civil engineering project for the Florentine Republic concerning the strategic redirection of the Arno River. Returning to Florence in 1503, Leonardo was enlisted to design a complex system of canals and dikes intended to divert the Arno River away from rival Pisa, cutting off its vital sea access. Leonardo surveyed the Arno Valley and began excavation work, but the project ultimately failed when floods and practical challenges proved insurmountable for the available Renaissance technology and resources. In the autumn of 1503, Leonardo officially resumed his artistic career in Florence, receiving a prestigious commission for a vast mural, the Battle of Anghiari, celebrating a Florentine victory. A young Michelangelo was simultaneously commissioned to paint the Battle of Cascina on the opposite wall, setting up an epic artistic rivalry between the two Renaissance titans in the Palazzo Vecchio Council Hall. Leonardo worked vigorously on Anghiari in 1504, creating a dynamic design centered on a ferocious tangle of horsemen fighting for a standard. The work focused on conveying the brutal, primal energy of conflict. However, Leonardo attempted an experimental technique, painting in oil on the wall and using heat to dry it, which horribly failed. The paint ran, leaving only a partially completed masterpiece that soon deteriorated and became the most famous Lost Leonardo. While engaged in the Grand Anghiari project, Leonardo simultaneously began work on a far more intimate piece, the portrait of Lisa Gherardini, wife of a Florentine merchant, which became the Mona Lisa. He worked on the portrait intermittently for years, achieving an unprecedented level of lifelikeness. Her body is turned in a three-quarter pose, establishing a new standard for psychological engagement in portraiture. The Mona Lisa is the supreme example of Leonardo's sfumato, where delicate blending of light and shadow around her mouth creates the famously ambiguous, living smile that changes with the viewer's focus. The fantastical, jagged landscape background features mismatched horizon lines on either side of the sitter's head, an optical trick Leonardo used to subtly affect the perception and scale of the figure. Contemporaries were astonished by the portrait's realism. Leonardo himself loved the painting so much that he never delivered it to the patron, keeping it with him for the rest of his life. In 1504, Leonardo faced the personal loss of his father, Ser Piero, which later resulted in legal disputes over the family inheritance due to Leonardo's illegitimate status. That same year, Leonardo served on the authoritative committee assembled to decide the proper placement for Michelangelo's newly completed colossal marble statue, David. His pioneering notes include the first accurate observations of the human spine's curvature, the bronchial tree of the lungs, and the structure of the heart's aortic valve, all documented in precise, detailed drawings. He correctly deduced the function of heart valves and the action of the heart as a muscle, anticipating William Harvey's work on blood circulation by over a century. In 1505, he drafted concepts for a self-propelled, spring-driven vehicle, essentially the first blueprint for an automobile, and sketched diagrams for a multi-barreled machine gun. In 1506, French Governor Charles d'Amboise invited Leonardo back to Milan, offering him an annual stipend and the title of the king's painter and engineer, ensuring stable patronage. In Milan, Leonardo took on Francesco Melzi, a young nobleman's son, as a new student. Melzi quickly became Leonardo's devoted secretary, companion, and, crucially, the intellectual heir to his vast collection of manuscripts. Leonardo traveled briefly back to Florence in 1507 to successfully resolve the legal quarrel with his half-siblings concerning the inheritance of his father's estate. Back in Milan by 1508, Leonardo purchased a house and vineyard, establishing a workshop and enjoying a fertile period of renewed scientific study, largely unfettered by major painting commissions. Between 1508 and 1510, he collaborated with Marcantonio della Torre, a professor of anatomy in Pavia, with the ambitious goal of publishing an illustrated treatise on the human body. During this peak scientific period, Leonardo produced hundreds of astonishingly accurate anatomical drawings, including the fetal development in the womb and the true alignment of the spine. He continued his geological studies, writing extensively about rock strata and erosion, providing observational evidence that the Earth had an ancient history shaped by natural forces. His engineering notebooks from this time contain designs for complex devices, including gear-driven perpetual calendars and an automated, programmable robotic night powered by gears and pulleys. The sudden death of Marcantonio della Torre from the plague in 1511 shattered Leonardo's dream of publishing his anatomical findings, leaving his revolutionary discoveries confined to his private manuscripts. In 1512, the French were driven out of Milan, once again leaving Leonardo without a stable patron. He stayed briefly in the countryside, observing the political and military upheaval from afar. In 1513, the Medici family returned to power in Florence, and Pope Leo X, a Medici, invited Leonardo to Rome. The 61-year-old artist traveled south with Salai and Melzi. He was granted prestigious residence in the Vatican's Belvedere courtyard, living amongst the giants of the High Renaissance, including Raphael and the recently completed work of Michelangelo. In Rome, Leonardo spent his time on technical experiments, designing a complex plan to drain the Pontine marshes for the Pope, an ambitious but unrealized land reclamation project. Pope Leo X famously expressed disappointment, noting that Leonardo worried about designing varnishes and machinery instead of actually painting the commissions he was given. For amusement, Leonardo crafted clever gadgets, including an autonomous lizard adorned with scales and horns, using quicksilver internally so the mechanical toy trembled and hissed convincingly. In December 1515, Leonardo attended a meeting in Bologna between Pope Leo X and the victorious young King Francis I of France, who was immediately captivated by the master. Francis I commissioned Leonardo to create a spectacular automaton for a pageant, a mechanical lion that walked forward and then opened its chest to reveal a bouquet of lilies, delighting the king. In 1516, the 64-year-old Leonardo accepted King Francis I's generous invitation and moved to France, bringing his 3 prized paintings, including the Mona Lisa and St. John the Baptist. Francis I appointed Leonardo his premier painter and engineer and architect, providing him with a substantial stipend and the comfortable manor house of Clos-Lucé near the royal palace. Despite suffering from partial paralysis in his right hand, likely caused by a stroke, Leonardo remained intellectually active, filling his time organizing his manuscripts and advising the king on design. He devoted time to visionary architectural plans for an ideal city complex for the king's mother at Romorantin, detailing innovative water systems and architectural flourishes, though the plans were not built. A visiting cardinal secretary noted in 1517 that Leonardo still proudly exhibited the Mona Lisa and his other cherished paintings to visitors, speaking animatedly about his artistic philosophies. During his final years, Leonardo produced striking deluge drawings, apocalyptic sketches depicting turbulent, swirling floods and catastrophic natural events, reflecting his lifelong study of water and chaos. In 1518, Leonardo finalized his will, ensuring that his loyal companion and secretary, Francesco Melzi, would inherit his vast and invaluable collection of manuscripts, notebooks, and artistic tools. On May 2, 1519, Leonardo da Vinci died at the age of 67 at his manor house in Clou, France, receiving a funeral with great honor, a final tribute to the universal genius. Francesco Melzi inherited the bulk of Leonardo's works, taking the manuscripts back to Italy. This preservation was crucial, securing the genius's scientific and engineering legacy for future generations. The Mona Lisa and other paintings Leonardo brought to France were acquired by Francis I, entering the French royal collection, which ensured their survival and eventual public display centuries later. Leonardo was buried in the cloister of the Church of St. Florentin in Amboise, a site that was later tragically destroyed during the French Revolution, scattering his remains. For centuries, the lack of published works meant Leonardo's scientific contributions were largely unknown to the world, delaying the understanding of his immense foresight in anatomy and mechanics. In a dramatic rediscovery in 1965, two lost Leonardo notebooks, the Madrid Codices, were found misfiled in Spain, revealing detailed diagrams of advanced gears, machines, and mathematical studies. The persistent aura of mystery surrounding Leonardo continues to fuel speculation about secret codes and hidden symbols within his art, captivating the popular imagination half a millennium after his death. Serious research has shown that Leonardo's secrets were simply his profound observations of nature, often quickly recorded in his private mirror writing, intended as a personal tool rather than an unbreakable cipher. Leonardo stands unchallenged as the ultimate exemplar of the Renaissance man, a figure whose fusion of art, science, and relentless curiosity continues to intrigue and inspire the world.